Well, we can go to Lviv now and speak to Michael Bossaque, Global Affairs Analyst and Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Michael, thanks for joining us on the programme tonight. So we know that Russia, of course, has been targeting power supply stations in Lviv. What are the conditions like in the city right now?
Good to be with you. Well, I think a lot of Ukrainian cities, including Lviv, have this amazing ability to bounce back very quickly. And that's what happened here. I would say within hours, things were pretty much restored to normal. They have an amazing talent to repair damaged infrastructure, especially the railways. And the workers went right away on the water supply, things like that. Having said that, it does raise a lot of anxieties here. Not only is this a gateway for those weapons that you mentioned, but it's also a humanitarian hub, and diplomats are slowly starting to return here as well as Kiev. So this obviously does raise the anxiety significantly.
Well, let's talk about what you just spoke about there. So Lviv, of course, has been this hub, this safe haven for those especially displaced by this war.
Yes.
But as it's increasingly being targeted by Russia, are security levels being upped then?
I noticed more of a security presence this morning, but the issue here is the following. As long as the Russians have the ability to use those long-range cruise missiles against cities like Odessa, Kiev, Lviv, no inch of Ukraine can be regarded as safe. And that's something the Ukrainian officials have echoed as well. My fear is the following, is that as the Russians become more desperate, they'll go back to their old playbook of carpet bombing, of using brute force, persistent brute force, like those long-range weapons, to target cities like this. So unless the West can give Ukraine everything it's been asking for and the ability to close its own skies to these types of missiles, it's going to remain a dangerous place.
So if Russia does, take aim at Lviv with greater force, do you think that's going to put off people arriving to the city?
Absolutely. It isn't only the threat of more strikes, but it's also really rising inflation that's gone through the roof here for things like housing and food. So what you're finding are a lot of IDPs going to other cities. And, the other area the West can help in this regard is to assist NGOs that are converting schools and dormitories and that sort of thing into temporary housing, because the idea here is to move them away from targeted areas into safe areas where they can, live more or less normally until they're safe to go back to where they came from, their home cities.
Now, we know that obviously safety is a huge concern. There's so much danger in the country. Now, on Tuesday, it was International Press Freedom Day. In the last week, we've seen 19 journalists killed in Ukraine since the beginning of this war. So it must be very dangerous to cover this war right now.
It is, absolutely. The numbers range from about 9 or 10 on the low end to more than 20 on the higher end. But even if you take that lower figure, Miriam, that's about the same number of journalists that were killed in Afghanistan last year. They had the highest number of any single country, and it represents about 20% of all journalists killed last year worldwide. Going to the front line is obviously very dangerous. The Russians seem to make it a practice to target journalists. So some foreign correspondents I've talked to actually question whether it's even a good idea to identify themselves on their vests with press or on their vehicles. Let's not forget, targeting civilians as well as journalists is a war crime, and the Russians need to be held accountable for this, but a lot more concerned than there used to be about their safety.
Indeed. Well, Michael Bossaque, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you for updating us on the latest picture on the ground from Lviv. Thank you so much.